So thrilled to be speaking about the book, The Irma Diaries. Now, most of you may know it. It's a beautiful and sobering reflection on one of the biggest atrocities to hit the British Virgin Islands. That's in 2017. Hurricanes Irma and Maria. Of course, we're seeing it through the eyes of 25 contributors. And today we sit down with the author and environmentalist, Miss Angela Burnett. So stick with us. A lot more coming right after this commercial break.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media at cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, as promised, we are here with the beautiful Miss Angela Burnett. She is the author of The Irma Diaries. Again, a beautiful reflection, sobering rather, on what happened in 2017. But today, a very, very special day for the brand. And we are so happy to be speaking to Miss Burnett. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Javon. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you this morning.
All right, so Angela, 2.5 years later, as we segue into, as a matter of fact, we're already in the hurricane season. I think it's very timely that we're reflecting on this book at this point. But before we jump into all the goodness, for those who may not know you, just tell our viewers a little bit about who you are as a person.
Sure, thank you. Well, as you said in my introduction, an environmentalist at heart. Some of my earliest memories are treading through salt ponds right here in the Virgin Islands, being at the beach almost every weekend, if not every weekend, always doing something outdoors. So an environmentalist has heart, proud to be born and raised right here in the Virgin Islands and giving back to this community now through my work and my career. I've always been a writer at heart, loved writing, and really privileged to be able to use that ability to bring these stories, these experiences to the world.
All right, so let's just piggyback to September 2017. I think one of the most defining parts of BVI history, definitely a storm that we could not have predicted would have caused that much as it relates to the catastrophic damages. Walk us through your experience. I know this is an amalgam of various persons contributing to the book, but what was it like for you?
Right. Well, you're certainly right, Javon. I mean, for anybody who may have forgotten or may not have known, Hurricane Irma was unprecedented at the time. It was the strongest hurricane to ever make landfall in the history of the Atlantic hurricane season, which dates to 1851. So we experienced something that at the time nobody else had ever experienced. And for me, I always find it a bit difficult to talk about my own experience because when I compare it to that of so many others, it feels like it's really not much to mention. But I think the defining moment for me in the hurricane was when I was literally holding the doors of the house, one of the doors of the house together with my hands. And I should say that our house, I think, is built fairly strong, roof fastened on very securely. And we have those really solid old-time wooden shutters, and we had even boarded up our shutters. So we felt pretty secure going into this hurricane. But my mother kept saying to me, the shutters are rattling. And I said to her, yeah, it's a Cat 5. The shutters are going to rattle. Don't worry. And there was a point when I realized, these shutters are rattling a little too much.
Right.
So I found myself actually up against the eastern wooden door of the house. And this is in the first half of the storm. And having that moment when I realized it's only a matter of moments before this door literally splinters apart.
Yes.
And I was standing next to a bookshelf that had all of the family photo albums. And I remember telling my mother, go get a plastic bag and come grab these albums because those are the only things we're going to have left. And while she's pulling the albums down, I'm holding the door together, trying to keep it together and just praying for some sort of miracle.
Wow.
And then in that moment, the eye, which none of us expected because we did not expect a direct hit, the eye of the hurricane came. And it was like that answer to prayer, that relief that we needed, and I know so many other families needed to actually survive Hurricane Irma.
Oh my God, I'm having chills just listening to it. And I know the experience is still very raw and real to so many persons across the island, as persons are still recovering and healing from the trauma of 2017. Now, I know one of the biggest things coming out of that phase was the fact that, as much as it was tragic that we had about 4 deaths, persons were still somewhat surprised based on the level of damage we saw and experienced. And I'm hearing that that was the inspiration behind your book. So tell us about that.
Yes, I actually had 3 experiences, I would say, shortly after Hurricane Irma. So again, I think like so many others, the first thing you did when the sun rose the following morning, you got out and you just started walking.
Right.
You wanted to make sure your family, your friends were okay. And that was literally the only way to get around, because all of the streets were blocked, poles were down, trees were down, people's cars were wrecked. So I'm out walking, and I live in the Hodges Creek area, and I was heading east because that's where the majority of my family and friends are based. So I'm heading that way, and I didn't make it maybe 5 minutes into my walk when you started to hear the rumors, 15 people dead, 20 people dead, 6 alone, an entire family in the East End village. And you're looking around you and you're seeing flattened homes, every other house roof is missing, you're seeing trailers and cars tossed everywhere. It looks like a bomb had been dropped. And you're thinking to yourself,
it has
God,
to be true.
It has to be true, one. And not only does it have to be true, the numbers are just going to climb, and you're expecting the numbers to probably get, close to 100 or even past 100, because you're thinking, of course it's true, look at the devastation.
Right.
So there was that experience. There was then the other defining experience for me was Irma hit on a Wednesday. That Friday afternoon, just kind of sitting on my back porch, trying to make sense of our new reality, choppers going overhead, and you're wondering, when is aid going to start to come? And I hear this announcement coming from the distance. It was coming from East End. And when it gets closer, I can make out the announcement. And it's the chief fire officer at the time warning us to try to find a secure place to shelter because we're expecting impact from Category 4 Hurricane Jose that weekend. And I just remember being angry. I remember being angry because I knew that Hurricane Irma, Jose, they were part of a much bigger phenomenon, and that's climate change that is happening and that is increasing the intensity of hurricanes and the frequency with which we have these major hurricanes. And I felt angry because there we were sitting in shambles, and just knowing that world leaders and so many people around the world still don't accept and acknowledge climate change, much less act on it. So I was angry. I was really angry. And then a few days later, I found myself volunteering with the National Emergency Operations Center, just trying to do my part to help in the recovery. And part of my duty in my volunteering there was to help to keep the notes from the nightly debrief. So we would have a debrief at about 10 p.m. every night. And I'd never forget the day when the first official death count came in. And it was 4 persons, not 20, not 25.
Just
and,
4.
4. And of course, every one of those is tragic, and you wish it were not a reality. But I just couldn't, help but think, gosh, how did so many people survive? And I became absolutely fascinated by what must have been these incredible stories of survival.
Yes.
And I sort of had this light bulb moment when I realized that I could use those stories to really bridge personal connections to the issue of climate change, to help people really connect, care, and then hopefully start to act more seriously on this issue. And it was that sort of light bulb moment where I had the idea for what is now the Irma Diaries.
Well, it was a brilliant idea. I must say,
Thank
the
you.
book is incredible. And 25 contributors, you said, a shared experience, but very different perspectives.
Definitely.
As you think about what people went through within that time. I'm sure most of them took your breath away, but if you had to just identify some that really stood out to you, that really captured the essence of what was happening in that time in our history, what would those be for you?
Gosh, that's such a difficult question, Javon, because naturally I want to say all 25 of them in their own right are incredible and unbelievable. If I had to pick just a couple, maybe the first thought that comes to mind is an elderly couple, actually, by the name of Elaine and John.
Okay.
That was one of the homes I actually got to visit in person within a few days of the of me starting this project, and they were able to walk me through their experience. And it stands out to me because I remember thinking at the time, and still thinking, that if I had not been there, if they had not actually physically walked me through that home and what happened, if I had just heard their story, I would not have believed it.
So just being there really brought the experience alive.
Yes, it was such a miraculous series of events that allowed those people to be alive that you really don't believe it until you actually are there and can see it. So without giving away their story too much, they, like I said, an elderly couple alone by themselves in this house. They were sheltering in the upstairs unit of their home. And at one moment, it was almost the equivalent of an explosion. The entire room exploded and everything went flying, including the toilet. Everything went flying, like literally you just see the slab. That's all that was left, the floor slab, including John and Elaine. So they were thrown by the hurricane. And John landed in this kind of ditch behind the house somewhere. And he happens so that what he calls his crash helmet, and that's actually the name of that story, crash helmet, this kind of bin lands on top of his head, preventing him to move, but also saving his life, because within moments, like, that bin starts to get assaulted with iron bars and all sorts of things that, had he not been protected by it, he would have been a dead man. So that definitely stands out in my mind.
That's a miracle.
Definitely a miracle. And I mean, the story has a lot, more miracles that saved their lives. But because they were out there in that storm for the entire second half, or, well, most of the first half, sorry, I should say. Another story that stands out is a story called Body Bag. That's actually set on Anegada. The reason the story is called Body Bag, I don't know if you remember hearing these rumors, but people from Anegada will tell you, and others will tell you, that when the first set of help went into Anegada, they say that, that help literally was primarily body bags, because they did not expect to find people alive on Anegada with this type of storm surge that Hurricane Irma packed with it. So the story is called Body Bag. It's really the story of a fisherman on Anegada who, again, his home completely disintegrates within the first few minutes of the storm really starting to get intense. And he literally shelters this entire storm at the side of his fishing boat, Big Kid. And just the thought of being out there completely exposed in Hurricane Irma, and he was actually able to send me a short video that he took while out there, just totally exposed in the elements. And, he said to me, he took that video because he really wasn't sure if he was going to make it. And if he didn't, he was hoping that at least the phone would survive, and people could find that clip and actually know that he tried his best to survive this thing. So that stands out. And then finally, I'll just quickly mention as well a story from Carrot Bay, Navarro Donovan and his family.
Yes.
That stands out in my mind for sure, because not only did these people ride out a Category 5 hurricane, but they had the simultaneous experience of battling a fire at the same time. So their house, if you can imagine this, their house literally caught fire in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane. Wow. And it was a fire that was sparked as a result of the hurricane. So they live right along the coast. The storm surge had come up to the point of where they had their vehicles and actually ignited a fire in the engine of the vehicle that then spread to the home. So imagine going through those two, any one of them in their own right is a disaster, but going through those two disasters at once. So, I mean, the book is packed with so many other incredible stories like that. But those are the ones that I guess kind
stands
of
out
come to mind as you ask that question.
All right. So daunting stories as we reflect, but really speaking to our resilience as a people and our ability to survive, which I truly love. But I think what I'm most refreshed about for today is the fact that these people will be honored. 25 contributors. Generally, we hear about people writing books and, putting together these stories for various different other reasons, but never do we hear about authors giving back and really honoring that. And I think it's just really refreshing. So can we get straight into that, please? Let's just speak to what even inspired you to do that, and of course, the persons who were able to benefit from this.
Right. So, Javon, like I said, I had this idea to write the book really that night when we got that official death count and that having that light bulb moment. But it wasn't until about a month after, because I was so caught up with what I was doing at the NEOC, that I actually had like a moment to sit down and breathe and start to think about this. So it was October 2nd when I actually put together a little social media advert, basically asking people who had incredible stories to share their experiences with me. So it was an open call. I didn't handpick these people. Everybody in this book either reached out to me based on that ad, and a lot of them I didn't even know before, or I had people who heard about the project say to me, do you know of so-and-so story? You really have to go get it. So that's how the Irma Diaries started.
So there was a willingness to reach out then?
Yes, definitely. People definitely came out to me. In fact, more people responded to me than I could, unfortunately, accommodate in the book. But basically, from that moment when I sat down and decided to officially put this idea out there, the decision was always there to donate 50% of the profits of the book.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. For me, while I'm the author of this book, I'm the one who went out there and did the interviews, collected the stories, and basically translated it into, storytelling that I think can resonate with the world. At the end of the day, these are not my stories. These are the stories of the 25 people who came forward and shared their experiences. Moreover, I think, it's the story of the Virgin Islands. Yes. And it's a story of what is happening to us as a result of this bigger phenomenon of climate change. So it just always felt right and fair that whatever profits come from this book should flow back to the people who shared their experiences to make the Irma Diaries what it is. And it should also flow back to the cause of really the mission of the book, trying to build awareness around this issue, but also help us to adapt. So the profits, that 50% donation, is split out two ways. Half of that goes to the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund, which is still in the process of being set up. So that donation will actually be handed over at the point when the trust fund is ready to receive donations. Okay. And the other half of that is split 25 ways among the 25 contributors. So effectively, each person gets 1% of the profits of the Irma Diaries, each of the 25 survivors who contributed. So I'm really, really happy that after 2.5 years of really working day in and day out, I often tell people writing this book has been, I don't have any children, but it must be the equivalent to like giving birth and starting to raise a child.
That perfectly encapsulates it.
Yes, and I have to say the majority, writing the book was easy. That was the easy part. The difficult part, and where a lot of the energy came, was after the book was out there, really pushing it, getting it out to the world, fulfilling the platform and mission of the Irma Diaries. So I'm really, really happy that after so much hard work, 2.5 years later, I can come back and say, the Irma Diaries is at a point where I can give that first round of donations.
All right, and that is quite a hefty donation, by the way. When you think about the numbers, the book has done incredibly well, and I'm sure, like you said, it's based on a combination of things. Your inspiration to write the book, but like you said, the stories that really comes out of the book, and so we're really happy to see you giving back. Now, viewers, for those of you, I know for a lot of us it's still very fresh, but we have a little refresher video that really speaks to this entire experience and the book that is the Irma Diaries, just beautifully put together. So let's just go quickly to that clip.
I started the process of writing the Irma Diaries with a search for people with incredible survivor experiences. The goal was to go behind the photos of our devastation and into the human experience of record-breaking Category 5 Hurricane Irma, with a bigger mission, getting people to connect, care, and act on the urgent global issue of our time, climate change. 2.5 years later, the Irma Diaries has sold over 2,800 copies to people from Australia to Canada. I've had the privilege of speaking at over 35 engagements around the world, from schools here in the Virgin Islands to heads of government meetings in the Caribbean, to a march in Boston, university lectures across the US and Europe, a United Nations forum in Asia, a TEDx talk, and several online fora. I've seen our stories have an impact. With sales to 2019, the Irma Diaries is now giving back over $16,500 US, 50% of its profits, to survivors and to the mission of building resilience to climate change. As we come together to say thanks and ask you to keep our stories going to inspire change, it's my privilege to introduce you to some of the courageous and amazing people behind the pages of the Irma Diaries, as they reflect on Irma, what they've been through, what they've learned, and what it's meant to be a part of this journey.
As we are on the eve of the 3rd anniversary of Irma, I must say that it has been very interesting. Having gone through the trauma, thankfully I'm at this place now where I'm finally about to move on. Just 2 days ago, finally had a dumpster come in, and I'm now picking up the pieces from this debris field that's still here. And luckily though I'm finding personal items, I can take them, throw them in the dumpster, and there's no emotion attached, and it's amazing. I can really now say and feel after all this time, I can deal with the reality of having lost everything here. And it's really time to move on, clean up, and get ready to build back.
In life, we adapt. Life is about adapt and changes. Nothing stays the same. I give thanks to whoever were there for us to support us, as I have support others. It's just the beginning of the journey, because this is going to last for a few more years. On top of this, we have Corona. We cannot close our eyes and say the hurricane has passed. The effect of the hurricane is here for a while. We're blessed.
Yes.
We're fortunate. We have strength and ability to do for ourselves.
Done what we could with what we have. We've worked hard personally on the house. We've had interactions with people helping us, but mainly it's us trying to put it together how we wanted it. Chico learning new trades and new things, and me learning patience.
We've had this house for about 12 years, and there have been a few hurricanes in that time. You know, and it was built in 1969, so we figured it's been through, you know, quite a lot of storms. But Irma was not an ordinary storm. And what it really made us realize that, you know, the impacts of stronger hurricanes because of climate change are here to stay. And for us to be able to ever put our family back in this house, we have to build back stronger, because we would never feel safe living in our family home otherwise. So whilst it's extra expense, it's our investment in our lives and in our future.
Take stock of your life and the fact that you do have life, and that material possessions really at the end of the day come and go, but having life, having family to support you is what's really most important. Being a part of this wonderful project, and again, the fact that it's one of my dear friends who pioneered this project, that in itself made it special for me. The feelings at that time were quite raw and real, and to have it written down and recorded that I can now look back on, and it's quite therapeutic. It's quite cathartic to have this written record of what I went through and what so many others went through, similar experiences to mine, but then still so different in a sense. It's unifying. It's something that you know could benefit others, and it was truly a humbling experience.
At the end of the day, each one of us as individuals who've told our story, we have to walk this road by ourselves, because only we know what we endured and what we experienced. So I'm thankful, and all I can say, God is good.
Thanks for sharing our stories.
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 Such a beautiful capture of the various stories, the various persons. Over $16,000 in contributions. I mean, I think that in itself really speaks volumes, Ms. Burnett.
Yes, I'm really thankful to the support that Irma Diaries has gotten, you know, first here by the local community. I'll never forget feeling so honored by the fact that literally probably close to 100 people came out to the launching of the Irma Diaries back in December 2017, even under curfew conditions and, you know, still extreme conditions at the time. And that support has grown internationally now. So the book has thankfully done quite well. And I'm able to give back $16,582 in donations at this point, and that represents sales from December 2017 to December 2019. And I'm looking forward to those contributions continuing to grow as the book continues hopefully to sell both locally and internationally and becomes more and more successful. Like I said, that donation is split out multiple ways, and at the end of the day, each contributor has now received a check of $331.64.
All right.
And I'm happy to say that I think the timing of this has worked out quite beautifully. Not only are we heading into another hurricane season right now, but also we're in the middle of COVID, which has had such a significant economic impact on everyone, including the persons featured in the book. So I think for many people, this has been extremely timely, and I know it's very much appreciated. In fact, I had one gentleman tell me something I'll never forget, Albert Whitley, when I called him about the check. He says, you know, this means so much more to me than the dollar amount of this check.
I am sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. Very, I'm having chills talking to you. Now, you have left a really heavy and positive imprint even in the schools through the Read to Heal program. Just tell our viewers a little bit about that.
Right. So Read to Heal is a school program that was launched back in, I think, October of 2018, really with the support of the business community in the Virgin Islands. So I reached out to persons in the community, business persons, to get their sponsorship with the view of donating copies of the book to the school. And 15 businesses that are all listed on theirmadiaries.com. It's probably too much for me to try to mention everybody now, but they came together and literally purchased copies of the book at a discounted rate to be donated to schools. We were able to give a donation of 350 copies, I think, thereabout.
Wow.
So every single primary and secondary school in the Virgin Islands now has a classroom set of the Irma Diaries. And the idea is really threefold. One, it's so significant, I think, as you said, this is now a very important part of Virgin Islands history, that we keep that history alive. I can tell you from my professional experience that, you know, 10 years roll by, and people forget the experience, or they forget how extreme it was, and people start to tend to fall back into old habits, old ways of doing things, and we can't afford that. So I thought it was really important that these experiences be shared with the students so that they continue to read them and remember them, not to be traumatized by them, but to learn from them and recall that in their growing up, in them becoming adults and building and constructing, that they have to do things differently. So that was one. Two was actually as a form of helping to heal trauma from the hurricane. So while it might seem counterintuitive at first, you know, the last thing you might think you might want to do to a traumatized kid is to share like survivor stories. Actually, as it turns out, these stories have really helped students deal with that trauma. Why? Because they can hear, for example, stories of Tico and Kim and Albert Whitley and Diane Drayton, and people who have had very extreme experiences, have lost basically everything, and they're still able to have an optimistic view on life, a positive outlook. They're able to talk about these things as just being material things, you know, but life being so much more important. And there's so many life lessons, and I wanted to be sure of that. The book is not just about capturing people's disastrous events. Every single story communicates such important and valuable life lessons that I think are inspiring, are healing, are unifying, that sharing those with the students have actually helped them to kind of think about their own experience in a bigger context and in perspective, and say, well, you know, I had this experience, but so did everybody else, and so many people have had more severe experiences and have been able to move past it, and so can I. So I've seen the book actually excite kids, you know, they love hearing the stories. They always have that wow look on their faces. It sparks a lot of conversation, and it helps them to even talk about their own experiences and process their own experiences. So it has been really healing for the kids. And then finally, it's a really good way to softly introduce to them the issue of climate change and let them know that unfortunately this is part of a bigger picture, and it's their generation that's really going to be dealing with the brunt of the impact. So it's been on those 3 levels, and I mean, so far the program has been going extremely well. My hope is that it continues by not just me going into the schools and reading, but anybody from the community can get involved. In fact, on the IrmaDiaries.com, there's a tab, Read to Heal, where people can still go and donate copies to the school at a discounted rate. And
Great.
People can actually sign up to volunteer, to read with kids at any school that they please. So I encourage people to please hop onto the IrmaDiaries.com. It's literally the name of the book.com. Look for that Read to Heal tab and be a part of the program.
All right, great stuff, great stuff. Now, you had the privilege of also traveling the world. Just speak about, let's get into the impact of the book beyond the borders of the BVI. Because like you said, persons across the world were truly inspired by the amalgam stories.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, yes, thankfully through the partnership of so many organizations, institutions, from BVI to the Caribbean, to the US, to Europe, to Asia, I've been able, like you said, to basically trot a significant part of the world sharing these stories. And I can confirm to you that the intended impact has been happening. Audiences are always spellbound. The mantra of the Irma Diaries is really connect, care, act. And I've seen that happening. I've seen our stories bridge a personal connection between people and the event that wasn't there before, even though they saw, pictures of our devastation plastered on the news. The news these days are filled with so many images of just seemingly one disaster after the next. It's easy to kind of turn a blind eye to these things. In fact, I recall following a presentation that I did at a United Nations forum in Asia, and it was a presentation to business leaders. One of the gentlemen in the audience came up to me afterwards and said, I recall seeing the Hurricane Irma photos, because Hurricane Irma was actually the most Googled term of 2017. So it was very big. It was, global. And he said, it was just one of those things where I flipped the page. I didn't really pay that much attention to it. But now, hearing these stories, I now appreciate so much more what that event was and what it means beyond just that event. So I've seen that happen. Just to give a few quick examples, I did a lot of work at universities. So I did a book tour across the US, I think 3 different states, about 10 universities. And I focused on university students because I really believe they can be catalysts for change. And as it turns out, a few days after I had one of my talks, sure enough, a group of students got together and did a protest at their university, basically calling on the university leadership to divest, what that means is to take all of their investments as a university out of any industry that has any ties to fossil fuel, and reinvest those funds into the solutions that we need to address climate change, renewable energies, etc. I've had people reach out to me over email, a couple in Germany, for example, who had visited the Virgin Islands sometime after Irma, picked up the book, I think at Serendipity Bookshop, read it, and they were so inspired that they decided to take action by replacing their use of fossil fuel with the installation of solar panels on their roof. So they're taking their personal action.
Affecting positive change.
Yes, exactly. So I've seen the impact, and I mean, those are the stories I'm aware of. I'm sure that those are multiplied several times over.
Right, definitely.
Yes, and people definitely have such personal connections to the people in this book. I've literally had somebody from Canada, for example, email me wanting to know if Kim Antico's dog is still alive, because it wasn't it wasn't clear from the story, and they were so concerned that they actually wrote me an email. So I know that the characters in this book, I feel kind of strange referring to them as characters, but the people in this book, I know that they've been able to permeate the pages of the Irma Diaries and actually connect to people in a very, very real and human way.
Awesome, and that's the magic in connection. Now, just to bring all of this full circle as we begin to wind down, of course, one of the purest inspirations was to positively affect what's happening. And like you said, a global issue we're dealing with, the issue of climate change. I mean, experts across the world are looking at the natural disasters, the storms that we are experiencing, and especially because we too are within that hurricane-prone region, we want to be as keen as possible as it relates to what's happening with climate change. How can we affect it? What can we do as a people? I know you, like you said, you are an environmentalist, but let's just speak to that specific aspect, even as we go further into hurricane season 2020.
Right, that's a very important topic, Javon. And as everybody hopefully knows by now, we're expecting another, overactive hurricane season. Even before we formally entered the season, we saw tropical storms as early as May. So, everybody can see these changes that are happening, and it's fundamentally all tied to the fact that we're having an increase in average global temperatures, both atmospheric and sea surface temperatures, and that's really the fuel of stronger hurricanes. The warmer water becomes, the faster it evaporates, and that fuels these stronger hurricanes. And the data is so clear that we're seeing now an increase in the frequency of major hurricanes that get to the highest wind speeds, and we're also seeing an increase in the speed limit of hurricanes, right? We're continuing to break records. I mean, 7 of the top 8, I think, seasons in the Atlantic hurricane season history for the number of major hurricanes have all been since 1950. Since Hurricane Irma, which we all thought was unprecedented, like 1 in a million, who knows when it's going to happen again. We've actually seen 2 weeks following, we've seen Maria. Last year we saw Dorian. And this year who knows what might happen, So I really want to take this moment to have people appreciate that. Unfortunately, Irma was not just a one-off freak event. It's part of this larger phenomenon. And if we are going to have some semblance of a future as a country, as a region, we really, really have to start to do things differently. And that means on 2 sides of the coin. I think even though we contribute such on a global scale, a trickle to the issue of climate change, I think each of us as individuals still has a responsibility to act. And so I've put together an entire resource page on the IrmaDiaries.com. It's called Islands for Life, which is really the name of a movement I'm hoping to start eventually through this. But on that page, Islands for Life at the IrmaDiaries.com, I've put together an entire resource center where people can go and find out the types of things that they can do to help minimize their contributions to climate change.
Nice.
And then also the other side of that coin is that we cannot continue to do business as usual. We need to think in every way about how we can become more resilient as a people. So that's everything from how we build, where we build, the type of protections that we provide to our natural ecosystems, which are very important lines of defense for us, and much more. So it's a conversation that we need to continue to actively have, and that's part of why, I've dedicated such a significant percentage of this donation to the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund, which is really intended to help the Virgin Islands adapt to climate change.
All right, very, very resourceful. Miss Angela Burnett, we are just about out of time. But before you go, let's just speak to, I'm sure a lot of persons contributed besides the actual contributors and the stories. I'm sure a lot of persons had to put in a helping hand to ensure that this project overall and the movement, because it goes beyond the book really, as we really dissect what's going on here. A lot to be done, a lot was done. Who do you want to thank for that?
Goodness, the list is so long. We could spend 5 minutes just literally listing people out. But for the moment, I would say that in terms of the present donation effort, I definitely want to thank BDO BVI. They actually donated their services, their accounting services, to make sure that all of my records were in order, to make sure that my numbers were straight, so that the donations could go out there with the confidence of knowing that the accounting was properly done. So I want to thank BDO again for donating their services in that respect. I definitely want to thank Kadia Turnbull, who has volunteered her talents to put together that lovely video that was shown earlier. That video is actually going to be launched on my social media platforms a little later today, and there'll be a full credits list that comes with the video. So please look out for that on Facebook, on Instagram, and I think 284 Media will also be sharing the link.
Definitely.
The link for that. So I mean, like you said, there have been so many people that have gotten me to this point. Everybody from my photographer and graphic artist, my stylist who's been with me this entire journey, all of my vendors, all of my Rita Heel sponsors, all of my speaking engagement partners. And really, there have been so many individuals, friends, family, and others who have contributed to the writing, to the publication, and to the sale of the Irma Diaries. I can't list them all now, but you know who you are, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the support that you've given me and will continue to give me, I'm sure. So thank you. And thanks again to 284 Media and all of my other media partners for helping me to get this out there. Without you, you know, the word would not have spread as far as it has. So my appreciation to you, Javon, and everybody at 284 Media and other media partners who have helped me through this journey.
Absolutely. It is our pleasure. Ms. Burnett, it has been a pleasure. Before you go, I just want you to remind persons how they can keep in contact with you. I know the Irma Diaries, it's still on sale. Like you said, persons can still buy it at a discounted cost to continue to donate to the schools and, of course, spread the awareness. And, of course, just continue the movement. So tell persons how they can keep up with you.
Right. So there are a number of vendors right here throughout the Virgin Islands, both on Tortola as well as the outer islands. So you can find a list of vendors, again, at theirmadiaries.com. There's a buy page where you can see where you can get your own copy in hand. So please go and check that out. Also, if you are overseas and want to get your hands on a print copy of the book, again, you can do that at theirmadiaries.com. I do ship the books internationally, and in most destinations, the shipping price is included in the book. So go and do that. And then if you're more of an EPUB reader, you want an electronic copy of the book, you can get that on Amazon.com, and that's of course, at a lower rate. So those are your purchasing options. Please go out, buy it for yourself, share it with a friend. Let's keep this going. And my contact details for anybody who might be interested in reaching out in terms of a speaking engagement or anything else, you can reach me. Again, my contact details are on theirmadiaries.com.
All right. Well, viewers, you have absolutely no excuse not to go grab a copy of this book if you did not as yet. I think it's pure. It really speaks to a really important time in our history, and it was done by a daughter of the soil. That is all the reason you need to go out and grab a copy of the book, and of course continue to raise awareness on climate change and the importance of us playing our respective parts in affecting positive change. Ms. Burnett, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely a pleasure to be here, Javon. Thanks again.
Viewers, this was quite a mouthful, but definitely very informative, very enlightening, and very inspiring. A daughter of the soil, an environmentalist, and the author of the Irma Diaries. Go grab a copy if you're not, if you have not grabbed one as yet. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And remember to tune in at 3 p.m. for our daily newscast. Goodbye.
Father Jesus. That line here long like church service.
Alright, do enjoy the rest of the day. Next customer line, please. Wait, hold on a second.
Yes, Sonny boy, come, yes,
Good
son.
morning.
Good morning, Sonny boy. Hold on there. You must have cut front of people.
It's okay, I'll take care of it.
What? No man, protect you.
How may I assist you? You want top of power?
You want top of power?
Join the prepaid party with CCT and enjoy more affordable data plans, more top-up promotions, more savings with hero bundles, and more value for your money each and every Tuesday with Top Up Turn Up Tuesday. Visit a CCT store today or anywhere CCT Top Up is sold and top up your phone.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. You want top of power?